Why would Australia slam the door on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? Not once, but twice. And what they're planning next could shock the world. Imagine this. Two of the most famous people on the planet, royals who once carried the weight of centuries of tradition, suddenly facing rejection on foreign soil. It sounds almost impossible, but this is exactly what's happening. And the story isn't just about a royal visit. It's about power, pride, perception, and a public that feels both betrayed and enthralled at the same time. The initial news hit like a thunderclap across social media and news outlets worldwide. Headlines screamed about the rejection, but no one could quite explain why Australia, a nation long seen as welcoming to the monarchy, would refuse a second visit from one of the most talked-about couples in modern history. Some suggested it was political, others pointed to public opinion, and a few even whispered about behind-the-scenes drama within royal circles. But the truth is, no one outside the inner circle truly knows what caused the shockwaves. And yet, here we are, watching as Harry and Meghan process what must feel like a personal and professional blow, all under the unforgiving glare of global attention. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What makes this story even more compelling is the timing. Just months ago, the couple visited Australia to a mix of fanfare and controversy. There were crowds, cheers, and cameras everywhere, but also moments of tension and criticism. Now, planning a second visit should have been straightforward, almost ceremonial. Instead, it became a chess match of diplomacy, media strategy, and personal pride. The stakes are high, and the world is watching every move. So what went wrong? Some suggest that Harry and Meghan underestimated the lingering resentment over past controversies. Others say it was political caution. Australia has its own priorities, and perhaps a second royal visit was deemed too risky or unnecessary. And then there's the media factor. Every action, every decision, every nuance is dissected online, creating pressure that can't be ignored. Imagine trying to plan a vacation or public appearance knowing millions of eyes are scrutinizing every step. For a couple already accustomed to intense public attention, this is a new level of scrutiny, one that tests both their patience and strategy. But let's zoom in on Harry and Meghan themselves. What does it feel like to face such rejection? For Harry, a prince who grew up under constant observation, the rejection might feel like an echo of old insecurities. For Meghan, who has had her own very public battles with media narratives, it might be a mix of frustration, determination, and defiance. Both are navigating complex emotions while also planning a response, strategic, carefully measured, but undeniably fueled by emotion. And emotion is key here. Every story, every revelation, every public statement carries not just information, but a charge of human feeling, anger, disappointment, hope, and resolve. And it isn't just about Australia. The implications ripple across the globe. Royal fans, critics, media outlets, and political commentators all have opinions, and every opinion amplifies the tension. Will the public view Harry and Meghan as victims of political maneuvering or as overreaching figures trying to reclaim a spotlight? Will Australia's government face backlash for this decision? And what about the palace? Are there private communications happening that the public will never see, influencing the situation behind the scenes? The layers of complexity are endless, and that's why this story is riveting. Let's talk about the stakes. This is not just about tourism or photo ops. For Harry and Meghan, every visit, every appearance, is a statement about their relevance, influence, and legacy. A second visit to Australia isn't merely a chance to reconnect with fans. It's an opportunity to demonstrate resilience, to assert independence, and to reclaim narrative control in a world that often tries to define them. And the rejection? It threatens all of that, forcing the couple to reconsider not just logistics, but messaging, timing, and strategy. What's more, the story contains contradictions that make it irresistible. On one hand, Australia is a nation that has long embraced ties to the monarchy. On the other, it is asserting its autonomy by rejecting a royal visit. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan are both immensely popular and heavily scrutinized, loved and criticized in equal measure. The clash of these forces creates drama, tension, and questions that demand answers. Why now? Why them? And most importantly, What will they do next? Even their previous visit to Australia plays a pivotal role. It wasn't just ceremonial, it carried emotional weight. Harry and Meghan engaged with communities, charitable causes, and local leaders. They were photographed, interviewed, and celebrated, but there were also whispers of unease. Some media reports suggested friction behind the scenes, hinting at disagreements with local officials or minor controversies. Now, with the door closed on a second visit, all those past events are cast in a new light. What seemed minor before now feels like foreshadowing of the larger tension brewing today. And let's not forget the human angle. Harry and Meghan are people navigating a highly unusual life. Extraordinary privileges mixed with extraordinary scrutiny. Every disappointment is magnified. Every success is broadcasted. When a country like Australia rejects their second visit, it's not just a logistical hiccup. It's a public statement that reverberates across media channels and social networks. How do they process it? How do they respond in a way that maintains dignity while also asserting agency? And how will fans, critics, and even the royal institution interpret their actions? By now, you might be wondering, how will they respond? Will they accept the rejection gracefully, or will they go on the offensive, challenging decisions and narratives? And here's where the story becomes even more captivating. Sources suggest that the couple is not taking this quietly. Far from it. There are reports of discussions, strategies, and plans in motion, moves designed to secure the impact they believe they deserve, while also navigating a minefield of public and political scrutiny. And the timing of all this is crucial. With global media cycles moving faster than ever, a single misstep could dominate headlines for weeks, influencing public perception and potentially creating political consequences. But Harry and Meghan are experienced in the art of media navigation. They know the stakes, they know the optics, and they know the world is watching. The question is, will their strategy succeed, or will unforeseen challenges disrupt everything? Imagine yourself in their shoes for a moment. Every decision you make is analyzed. Every visit is dissected. Every smile, every word, every gesture carries layers of meaning. And now, a nation says, not this time. The emotional and strategic implications are enormous. It's a test of resilience, image management, and influence, one that very few people in the world ever face at this scale. And as we follow this story, it becomes clear that what seems like a simple travel decision is, in reality, a complex narrative of pride, politics, and personal resolve. But here's the kicker. Despite the rejection, Harry and Meghan are reportedly planning a second attempt. Yes, the very idea of going back after a public denial is audacious, bold, and fraught with risk. And yet, it reflects a certain determination that has characterized their public life. It raises questions. What will they do differently this time? How will they address the factors that led to the initial rejection? And perhaps most importantly, what does this say about their approach to power, influence, and narrative control? So what comes next? Will Australia reconsider? Will Harry and Meghan alter their plans, tone, or approach? Or will the tension escalate, drawing in more media, public attention, and perhaps even political voices? The story is unfolding in real time, and every new development has the potential to change the narrative completely. And as we dive into the details, the twists, the insider perspectives, and the emotional beats, it becomes clear that this is far more than a royal visit. It's a saga of ambition, perception, and the complex interplay between fame, influence, and rejection. No one expected it. Not the royal household, not the media, and certainly not the fans. Australia had always been seen as a friendly stage for the monarchy, a nation where history, loyalty, and admiration created a sense of welcome. And yet, when news broke that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's second visit was being rejected, the world stopped and stared. How could this happen? How could a country known for its ties to the crown refuse two of the most famous people on the planet? The questions swirled, and the implications rippled far beyond a simple denial of entry. The story begins not with the rejection itself, but with the anticipation that preceded it. Harry and Meghan had already completed their first tour with a mix of fanfare, controversy, and intense media scrutiny. From the moment they arrived, cameras followed their every step. The public cheered, photographers snapped, and journalists analyzed each gesture and interaction. Yet, even in the midst of celebration, there were whispers of tension. Some officials reportedly expressed concern over security, scheduling, and even political optics. Others noticed subtle disapproval from certain media outlets, who hinted that the couple's approach to public engagement was unconventional, sometimes bold to the point of controversy. It was during this period that the groundwork for a second visit was being discussed. The plan seemed straightforward at first. Public appearances, charity visits, and engagement with local leaders. The couple's team worked tirelessly to ensure everything was meticulously coordinated. But then, the unexpected happened. News arrived, like a thunderclap in the calm of anticipation, that Australia would not approve a second visit at this time. Official statements were sparse, but the effect was immediate. Headlines splashed across newspapers and websites. Royal visit rejected. Australia says no to Harry and Meghan. Palace faces setback down under. Social media erupted. Fans voiced outrage. Critics expressed approval, and the world debated the reasons behind this unprecedented decision. To understand the gravity, we must consider the stakes. For Harry and Meghan, every trip, every visit, and every engagement carries layers of symbolic importance. They are not merely travelers. They are representatives of a legacy and of their own evolving narrative. A second visit to Australia would have reinforced their influence, provided opportunities for charitable initiatives, and allowed them to connect with loyal supporters. The rejection, therefore, was more than logistical. It was a direct challenge to their authority, influence, and public image. But what caused this rejection? Speculation runs deep. Some analysts suggest political caution. Australia, like any sovereign nation, has its own priorities and may have assessed that a second royal visit could stir unwanted controversy. Others point to lingering resentment over past controversies involving the couple, media narratives, palace drama, and publicized disputes. Perhaps there were concerns about security, logistics, or even the optics of the visit in a country grappling with its own political and social challenges. Whatever the reasons, the effect was clear. A shockwave of disappointment, frustration, and confusion that spread far beyond the couple's immediate circle. Inside the royal household, the response was reportedly a mix of surprise and strategizing. Harry and Meghan were said to have been frustrated, even angry. Imagine the situation. You are accustomed to careful planning, public adulation, and global media attention, yet suddenly your plans are halted by a rejection that seems out of proportion to the reality on the ground. For a couple whose lives are lived in constant public scrutiny, this type of setback is both personal and highly public. Every emotion is magnified, every reaction is scrutinized, and every decision carries consequences. Meanwhile, public reaction was explosive. Fans loyal to Harry and Meghan flooded social media with expressions of support and outrage. How could they say no? One fan tweeted. Australia is missing out, others chimed in. At the same time, critics celebrated, arguing that the couple's influence had grown too assertive or that a second visit was unnecessary. The clash between adoration and criticism created a volatile atmosphere, and media outlets capitalized on it, running stories that dissected every angle, speculation, and potential outcome. What makes this moment even more compelling is the symbolism of rejection. Harry and Meghan are figures whose lives are already intertwined with controversy, public scrutiny, and media narratives. To be rejected by a nation that was previously seen as welcoming adds a new layer to their public story. It raises questions about legitimacy, influence, and the couple's role in the modern monarchy. Is the rejection a reflection of public sentiment, political calculation, or both? And what does it say about the balance of power between a celebrity couple with royal ties and a sovereign nation asserting its autonomy? Then there's the emotional component. While much of the public only sees headlines, the couple experiences rejection on a personal level. For Harry, a prince who grew up under immense pressure and public judgment, this is another moment that tests his resilience. For Meghan, a woman who has faced relentless media scrutiny, legal battles, and public criticism, the rejection is yet another obstacle in a life lived under a magnifying glass. The emotional stakes are high, and the response must be carefully calculated. Public statements, private communications, and strategic planning all intersect at this moment, creating tension that few outside the inner circle can fully comprehend. The rejection also triggered speculation about the couple's next steps. Will they accept it quietly, gracefully bowing out? Or will they challenge the decision, mobilizing public opinion and media attention to apply pressure? Reports suggested that discussions were underway, strategies being devised, and contingency plans being considered. Harry and Meghan are known for their ability to navigate media landscapes and public perception. This is not their first encounter with global controversy. And yet, the stakes are different here. The rejection is not just a story. It is a test of influence, perception, and resilience. Some insiders indicated that the decision by Australia may have been influenced by a combination of logistical, political, and public sentiment factors. Security concerns were cited, alongside potential disruptions to local events and engagements. Political leaders may have weighed the optics of allowing a second royal visit against their national priorities, ultimately deciding that a pause, or outright refusal, was the safer choice. Meanwhile, the media frenzy amplified every rumor, statement, and reaction, creating a feedback loop of speculation and drama. For the public, this rejection ignited a range of emotions. Fans who had celebrated the first visit felt disappointment and even outrage, rallying on social media to defend the couple. Others expressed relief or satisfaction, arguing that a second visit was unnecessary or that the couple should focus on other priorities. This polarization only intensified the pressure on Harry and Meghan. In the modern era, perception often carries as much weight as reality. Every decision, every reaction, and every statement is amplified, interpreted, and sometimes distorted. The rejection became more than a logistical issue. It became a media and public relations event with far-reaching consequences. And yet, the story does not end with the rejection itself. In fact, it is only the beginning. Harry and Meghan are reportedly planning a response, strategic, calculated, and potentially bold. Their next steps could redefine public perception, influence international relations, and even shape the ongoing narrative surrounding their lives. Every movement is watched, analyzed, and critiqued. Every choice carries weight, and every misstep could escalate an already tense situation. The rejection of a second visit, while shocking, also demonstrates the complexities of life at the intersection of celebrity, royalty, and politics. Harry and Meghan navigate a world where personal choices are public events, where emotions are globalized, and where influence and perception are constantly contested. This rejection serves as a powerful reminder that even figures with immense privilege are not immune to obstacles, opposition, or public scrutiny. And so, the question lingers. What will Harry and Meghan do next? Will they challenge the rejection, finding a way to secure the second visit? Or will they pivot, adjusting plans, messaging, and strategy to respond to this unexpected setback? The tension is palpable, the stakes are immense, and the world watches in anticipation. What really happens behind the palace doors is a world few ever glimpse. The rejection from Australia didn't just play out in headlines. It triggered a flurry of private discussions, strategic meetings, and intense emotional responses within Harry and Meghan's inner circle. Imagine the scene. A quiet office, maps of Australia sprawled across tables, schedules marked with every planned appearance, and advisors huddled together, debating how to respond to a rejection that nobody expected. It wasn't just a logistical problem. It was a test of resilience, influence, and narrative control. The moment the news reached the couple, sources suggest that Meghan's reaction was a mix of frustration and disbelief. For someone who has fought so hard to define her own story amidst relentless media scrutiny, being publicly turned away by an entire nation must have felt like a personal affront. Harry, too, was reportedly stunned, but his response carried a different intensity. A prince who grew up under constant observation, whose every move was analyzed, and whose sense of duty has always been paramount, suddenly found himself facing a challenge that was as public as it was personal. Together, the couple had to decide, accept the decision and move on, or strategize a bold, unprecedented response. Inside the palace walls, the atmosphere was tense. Advisors, legal teams, public relations experts, and royal aides convened to analyze every possible angle. Questions flew. Should they issue a public statement? Should they wait for a private discussion with Australian officials? Could they leverage public support to reverse the decision? And what about timing? When and how should any response be revealed to maximize impact while minimizing backlash? Every option had risks. Every action carried consequences. Some reports suggested heated debates among advisors. One faction argued for restraint, emphasizing diplomacy, patience, and the importance of preserving relationships with Australia. Another faction pushed for a more assertive approach, media engagement, public statements, and strategic leaks to apply pressure. Harry and Meghan, known for their independent thinking, listened carefully but also weighed their own instincts. They had navigated controversies before, and they knew that timing, optics, and emotional delivery would be crucial. But it wasn't only about strategy. Emotion played a significant role. Meghan's anger and disappointment reportedly fueled a desire to take control of the narrative. She understood the stakes, how the story could influence public perception, fan loyalty, and even future engagements. Harry's determination was equally intense. He is a man shaped by the weight of legacy, expectation, and scrutiny, and he was unwilling to let a rejection define the outcome. Together, they faced a dilemma that combined professional judgment with personal emotion, a delicate balance that few in history have had to navigate under such global observation. Meanwhile, palace insiders hinted at subtle friction in private discussions. Not all advisors agreed on the best approach. Some worried that a public backlash against Australia could damage diplomatic relations or create media narratives that framed Harry and Meghan as overreaching. Others argued that a softer response might be interpreted as weakness, giving the public or critics the upper hand. The couple had to weigh these competing perspectives, balancing the desire for assertiveness with the need for strategic discretion. Beyond internal debates, there were other considerations. Security concerns, travel logistics, and even local Australian politics came into play. A second visit could require adjustments to schedules, coordination with authorities, and meticulous planning to avoid past controversies. Sources indicate that the couple's team began mapping out multiple scenarios, including alternative routes, contingency plans, and public messaging strategies designed to mitigate risk while preserving impact. The sheer complexity of planning under such intense scrutiny added another layer of tension to the process. It was during these discussions that a critical realization emerged. The stakes of this second visit were about far more than appearances. They represented influence, autonomy, and narrative control. Every statement, every planned action, and every interaction with the public or media had the potential to either reinforce their image or undermine it. The rejection from Australia, therefore, became not just a logistical problem, but a symbolic moment. A test of their resilience, ingenuity, and ability to shape their own story amidst global scrutiny. Sources close to the couple reveal that private conversations were intense, emotional, and at times confrontational. Arguments about tone, approach, and timing reportedly dominated discussions. Some advisors pushed for immediate public engagement, while others urged patience. Meghan's perspective was reportedly informed by past experiences with media narratives, emphasizing the importance of taking control of the story before it spiraled out of their hands. Harry's perspective, shaped by duty and personal conviction, leaned toward a measured but firm response, assertive enough to demonstrate resolve, but strategic enough to avoid unnecessary controversy. As these discussions unfolded, the couple also considered the public's reaction. Social media, public opinion polls, and fan engagement all played into their strategy. They understood that a visible, decisive response could rally supporters, but also risked amplifying critics. The emotional calculus was complex. How to assert authority and influence without triggering backlash or overshadowing the purpose of the visit itself. Every decision was intertwined with perception, and perception, in their world, is power. Amidst this planning, rumors began circulating. Speculation about private meetings with Australian officials, potential media statements, and even leaked information about revised travel plans started surfacing online. Whether intentional or not, these rumors increased pressure on the couple to act decisively. Harry and Meghan had to navigate not only the realities of planning and diplomacy, but also the uncontrolled narratives proliferating across media channels. Each rumor, each headline, each viral social media post was another variable in a story that was already unprecedented in its complexity. And yet, despite all the pressure, insiders report that Harry and Meghan remained focused. The couple is known for their ability to remain composed under scrutiny, and they applied this skill to the situation. Every discussion, every meeting, and every plan was approached with strategic intent, balancing emotion with calculation. They understood that the next move could define public perception, influence political considerations, and impact future engagements, not just in Australia, but globally. It was in this context that the idea of a second attempt began to solidify. Rather than accept rejection, Harry and Meghan reportedly started plotting ways to revisit Australia with a strategy that would address past concerns, anticipate political objections, and capture public support. The planning involved multiple contingencies, messaging strategies, and engagement tactics designed to ensure maximum impact. It was audacious, yes, but audacity has long been a hallmark of their public approach. And yet, the question remained, could they succeed? Could they navigate the complex web of political, logistical, and media challenges to turn a public rejection into a triumph? Or would unforeseen obstacles derail their plans, leaving them with a story defined by denial rather than achievement? The tension was palpable, and the world was watching, eager to see the outcome. Behind the palace doors, the stakes could not have been higher. Every decision carried weight. Every reaction had consequences. Every emotion was amplified. The rejection from Australia was no longer just a news story. It was a crucible, testing their ability to navigate one of the most unusual, public, and scrutinized challenges of their lives. But as the plans for a second attempt took shape, a startling development emerged, one that no one, not even the couple's closest advisors, had anticipated. The moment the idea of a second visit emerged, everything changed. What had begun as disappointment transformed into determination, and behind the scenes, Harry and Meghan were plotting a comeback that would be audacious, calculated, and strategically bold. Imagine this. The couple sitting in a private room, maps of Australia spread out before them, advisors and aides quietly deliberating, every detail scrutinized, every possible scenario considered. This was no ordinary trip. It was a chance to reclaim influence, assert agency, and send a message that rejection was not the end of the story. It was merely a chapter. The first step in planning this comeback was understanding the reasons behind the rejection. Australia's decision was shrouded in official statements, diplomatic phrasing, and a layer of ambiguity that left room for interpretation. Was it political caution? Concerns about public perception? Security logistics? Or was it something more personal, a subtle statement about boundaries and control? Harry and Meghan needed clarity, and sources suggest they began meticulously investigating the factors that had led to the denial. Every detail mattered, because the second attempt had to address these concerns head-on. Meanwhile, the emotional stakes were high. Harry, whose life has been shaped by public expectation and private pressure, was reportedly determined to approach the challenge with resolve and focus. Meghan, known for her sharp intelligence and media savvy, was equally committed to turning a public setback into an opportunity for strategic advantage. Together, they were not simply planning a visit. They were plotting a statement, one that would demonstrate resilience, foresight, and the ability to control the narrative even in the face of global scrutiny. The couple's advisors reportedly divided tasks to cover all critical aspects. One team focused on logistics, flights, accommodations, security arrangements, and coordination with Australian authorities. Another concentrated on public perception, messaging, media engagement, and timing of announcements. A third team worked on contingencies, alternative routes, emergency plans, and handling potential backlash. The process was exhaustive, meticulous, and designed to leave no detail to chance. Every variable, from political optics to fan reception, was analyzed, modeled, and debated. But strategy alone wasn't enough. The couple also needed an emotional approach that resonated with the public. Public relations experts reportedly emphasized the importance of framing the second visit as a celebration of connection rather than a confrontation. The messaging had to balance charm with assertiveness, warmth with confidence, and humility with authority. It was a delicate equation, too aggressive, and they risked backlash, too soft, and the story of resilience would be lost. To support this, Meghan and Harry reportedly engaged in what insiders describe as scenario planning. They considered multiple potential responses from Australian authorities: acceptance, continued hesitation, or outright refusal. For each scenario, they developed strategies for messaging, media engagement, and public appearances. This level of preparation was unprecedented, demonstrating the couple's understanding that influence is not granted. It is earned through meticulous planning, timing, and strategic execution. In addition to logistical and strategic planning, the couple reportedly focused on the symbolic aspects of the visit. Every meeting, every event, and every interaction would carry meaning. They were determined to highlight causes, charities, and community engagement that aligned with their personal values while also appealing to public sentiment. The goal was not just to secure access, but to create a narrative that reinforced their relevance, commitment, and positive impact. The planning phase also included a careful analysis of public sentiment. Social media trends, fan engagement metrics, and commentary in news outlets were all studied to gauge potential reactions. Advisors reportedly conducted simulations, predicting how different approaches might influence public opinion. This was not just a royal visit. It was a full-scale communications campaign designed to maximize support while minimizing controversy. Despite the meticulous preparation, tension remained high. Insiders indicate that discussions were sometimes heated, with debates over tone, messaging, and approach. Meghan, drawing on past experiences with media narratives, reportedly emphasized assertiveness and control of messaging. Harry, grounded in his sense of duty and public service, focused on maintaining dignity, strategy, and impact. Together, they navigated the fine line between emotion and calculation, ensuring that every decision was deliberate, purposeful, and strategically sound. Humor and morale also played a role. Sources suggest that the couple used lighter moments to relieve tension, sharing private jokes and anecdotes that reinforced their bond. These moments, though brief, were important in maintaining emotional balance and focus. Planning a comeback under intense global scrutiny is exhausting, but the couple's ability to maintain composure and resilience reportedly strengthened their resolve. Meanwhile, reports indicate that initial outreach to Australian officials was underway. Back-channel communications, preliminary discussions, and exploratory conversations were reportedly taking place, all aimed at gauging receptivity and identifying potential compromises. The goal was to find a path forward that respected Australian authority while also creating opportunities for meaningful engagement. This phase required patience, diplomacy, and strategic thinking, the hallmarks of a carefully planned royal initiative. In parallel, the couple's team worked on media strategy. Press releases, social media messaging, and controlled leaks were all considered as tools to manage public perception. Sources describe careful coordination of timing, wording, and visual imagery, ensuring that every narrative thread supported the overarching goal, turning a rejection into a compelling story of determination, strategy, and eventual triumph. The planning also accounted for potential obstacles. Contingency plans included alternative venues, revised schedules, and crisis management strategies. Every potential setback was anticipated, every risk analyzed, and every solution mapped out. Harry and Meghan's approach was exhaustive, reflecting an understanding that in a global media environment, even minor missteps can become major controversies. And yet, for all the planning, there was an element of unpredictability. Public sentiment, political decisions, and media narratives are inherently volatile, and even the most meticulous strategy cannot control every outcome. The couple reportedly acknowledged this reality, preparing to adapt, pivot, and respond in real time as events unfolded. Flexibility, they understood, was just as important as preparation. Amid all this planning, emotional stakes continued to rise. The rejection had not only challenged their logistical plans, but also their personal resilience. Sources indicate that both Harry and Meghan were determined to use this challenge as an opportunity to demonstrate strength, independence, and vision. They were not simply reacting. They were shaping the narrative, asserting their agency, and defining the terms of engagement. And then came the audacious decision. The second visit would go forward, but on their terms. The couple reportedly outlined a bold strategy that combined diplomacy, public engagement, media control, and symbolic gestures. Every element was designed to address previous obstacles, anticipate potential objections, and create a narrative that would resonate with supporters while neutralizing critics. It was a calculated risk, one that required courage, foresight, and absolute commitment to their vision. But even with meticulous planning, one critical question remained. Would Australia accept the second visit? Could Harry and Meghan navigate the complex interplay of politics, media, and public perception to turn rejection into acceptance? Or would unforeseen challenges derail even the most carefully orchestrated strategy? The answer was uncertain, and the tension was palpable. As advisors continued to refine plans, and as the couple mentally prepared for what lay ahead, a new variable emerged, one that threatened to upend the strategy entirely. The news of Harry and Meghan's planned second visit spread like wildfire, but the real story was how Australia reacted. From the first whispers in political corridors to the headlines plastered across international media, every reaction carried weight, symbolism, and consequence. What made this situation so extraordinary was not just the rejection itself, but the intensity, nuance, and unpredictability of the response from a nation that had long been seen as friendly to the monarchy. The moment Australian officials became aware of the couple's intentions, debates reportedly erupted behind closed doors. Politicians, advisors, and security personnel convened to assess potential risks, political implications, and public perception. Some advocated for acceptance, emphasizing diplomacy, tradition, and the potential positive impact on tourism and cultural engagement. Others argued for caution, citing logistical challenges, security concerns, and the volatile media environment surrounding Harry and Meghan. Every argument carried merit, but the decision-makers faced the daunting task of balancing public sentiment with national priorities. Public reaction was equally complex. Supporters of the couple flooded social media with praise and excitement, eager to welcome the royals back. Memes, hashtags, and viral posts celebrated their anticipated return, portraying Harry and Meghan as resilient, inspiring figures. Yet critics were vocal, too. Some argued that a second visit was unnecessary, a distraction from domestic issues, or an attempt by the couple to reclaim attention after prior controversies. The division was palpable, and Australian authorities had to navigate the political and social fallout of any decision carefully. Official statements from the government were measured, diplomatic, and deliberately vague. They acknowledged the couple's interest in a second visit while emphasizing the importance of national priorities and protocol. Yet beneath the polished language, the message was clear: approval was not guaranteed, and logistical or political challenges could impede progress. This careful wording reflected the complexity of the situation. A need to maintain cordial relations with the British monarchy while asserting national autonomy. Media coverage amplified the tension. Newspapers, television networks, and online platforms dissected every detail, from potential venues and schedules to security protocols and rumored meetings with Australian officials. Headlines ranged from neutral reporting to sensational commentary, each story shaping public perception and influencing the ongoing dialogue. Social media acted as a magnifying glass, intensifying every narrative thread and amplifying both support and criticism. The global attention made the situation even more volatile, adding layers of pressure on decision-makers in Australia. Inside government offices, sources suggest that debates were intense. Some officials reportedly feared that accepting the visit could trigger political controversy or overshadow domestic priorities. Others highlighted the opportunity for cultural diplomacy, emphasizing the potential benefits of high-profile engagement and international attention. Security concerns were paramount. Planning for a visit of this scale would require meticulous coordination, from protective measures to crowd control, transportation logistics, and emergency protocols. The complexity of the operation added another dimension to the decision-making process. Meanwhile, advisors reportedly monitored public sentiment closely. Opinion polls, social media engagement metrics, and media analysis were leveraged to predict potential reactions. Officials had to consider the impact on public trust, political capital, and international reputation. Every option carried risks, every word was scrutinized, and every potential outcome had to be weighed against both domestic and international considerations. The couple's public image also influenced the response. Harry and Meghan are figures of global fascination, admired, criticized, and endlessly analyzed. Their presence in Australia would draw media attention on an unprecedented scale, creating opportunities for positive engagement but also the potential for controversy. Officials reportedly factored in these dynamics, recognizing that the visit would be more than ceremonial. It would be a media event with far-reaching implications. Australian media outlets did not hold back. Headlines highlighted historical context, political ramifications, and public sentiment. Some articles praised the couple's resilience and global influence, framing their persistence as inspiring. Others criticized the idea of a second visit, questioning motives and potential consequences. Editorials debated whether the rejection reflected prudence or misjudgment, and public commentary further fueled the discussion. The media storm created an environment where any decision would be dissected, analyzed, and debated endlessly. Amid all this, whispers emerged of behind-the-scenes negotiations. Sources suggested that initial outreach from Harry and Meghan's team had been met with cautious receptivity, followed by discussions about security, scheduling, and diplomatic protocol. Officials weighed these proposals carefully, balancing the couple's expectations with national priorities. Yet despite careful planning, uncertainty persisted. Reports indicated that some officials were skeptical of the couple's intentions, questioning whether a second visit was about diplomacy, public engagement, or personal branding. Others emphasized the potential benefits of high-profile attention, highlighting opportunities for charitable initiatives, cultural collaboration, and tourism promotion. The decision was anything but straightforward, reflecting the delicate balance between opportunity and risk. Public sentiment remained a powerful factor. While Harry and Meghan's supporters celebrated their determination, critics warned of potential distractions, political fallout, and media overexposure. Social media debates grew heated, further complicating the environment. Every post, tweet, and comment was amplified, shaping perceptions and influencing the ongoing conversation. In this climate, officials had to navigate not only practical considerations, but also the symbolic significance of their decision. As the government deliberated, the couple continued planning behind the scenes. Their team analyzed potential scenarios, developed contingency plans, and refined messaging strategies. They anticipated challenges, prepared responses, and sought ways to maximize public engagement while mitigating risks. The process was exhaustive, reflecting an understanding that success required both strategic precision and adaptability in real time. Amid these deliberations, the symbolism of the rejection became increasingly clear. Australia's cautious stance sent a subtle message about autonomy, priorities, and the limits of influence. For Harry and Meghan, it underscored the complexity of operating on the global stage, where even extraordinary visibility and status do not guarantee access or approval. The couple faced the reality that public fascination and media attention, while powerful, cannot override political, logistical, or social considerations. And yet, the response was not purely negative. Some officials reportedly expressed admiration for the couple's resilience, noting that persistence and strategic engagement could ultimately lead to a successful outcome. The situation became a delicate dance of negotiation, diplomacy, and perception management, with every participant aware that the stakes were immense and the world was watching. In this high-pressure environment, Harry and Meghan's next moves became even more critical. How they engaged with Australian authorities, how they communicated with the public, and how they navigated media scrutiny would determine whether rejection turned into acceptance or whether obstacles would multiply. Every decision mattered, every interaction carried consequence, and every emotional reaction was amplified. As the public waited, speculation grew. Headlines questioned whether a second visit would materialize, while insiders hinted at ongoing discussions, strategy sessions, and potential compromises. The tension was palpable, a mix of anticipation, uncertainty, and drama that captivated audiences worldwide. As the news of Harry and Meghan's second planned visit spread, the story exploded across global media. Headlines, tweets, news alerts, and breaking reports dominated every channel, creating a storm of attention that was both unprecedented and relentless. For the couple, the rejection by Australia had already set the stage, but the media frenzy transformed it into a spectacle, amplifying every nuance, reaction, and speculation. The world was watching, and everyone had an opinion. From the moment the story broke, media outlets scrambled to provide context, analysis, and prediction. Some framed the rejection as a political maneuver, emphasizing Australia's desire to assert independence and control over high-profile visits. Others portrayed it as a personal slight, suggesting that Harry and Meghan's growing global influence and outspoken stances may have contributed to the decision. Every interpretation carried weight, and every narrative influenced public perception. Social media played a critical role in shaping the storm. Fans of the couple flooded platforms with messages of support, using hashtags, memes, and viral posts to express outrage at the rejection. Many portrayed the couple as resilient and determined, positioning them as figures who refused to be sidelined by politics or protocol. Critics, meanwhile, amplified cautionary perspectives, arguing that the second visit was unnecessary, overly ambitious, or even tone-deaf. The result was a digital battleground, where public sentiment collided with media narratives, creating intense scrutiny for every move the couple made. Traditional media outlets were equally voracious. Newspapers ran front-page stories analyzing the potential impact on diplomatic relations, tourism, and public perception. Television networks hosted panels of commentators debating every angle, from political implications to security logistics. Online platforms published endless threads dissecting every historical visit, every interaction, and every public appearance, connecting dots that sometimes weren't even there. In this environment, the media storm became a force of its own, shaping the narrative even before Harry and Meghan could respond. Behind the scenes, the couple's media team worked tirelessly. Sources suggest they monitored every outlet, analyzed sentiment trends, and prepared responses for potential controversies. Messaging strategies were refined continuously, aiming to balance assertiveness with diplomacy, charisma with respect, and resilience with accessibility. Every press release, interview, and social media post was planned with surgical precision, designed to manage public perception and maximize positive engagement. Yet the media storm was not only about coverage, it was about amplification. Every small detail, every reported conversation, and every minor misstep was magnified, sometimes distorted, and shared globally within minutes. A single rumor could become a headline. A private planning discussion could be interpreted as scandal. The couple's challenge was to navigate this torrent of information, filtering fact from speculation, while maintaining control of their narrative. Even seemingly minor elements were scrutinized. Clothing choices, body language, and facial expressions were analyzed in the context of public perception. Every gesture was interpreted as a statement, every smile as a calculated move. The pressure was immense. A single misinterpreted moment could spark controversy, influence diplomatic relations, or dominate news cycles for days. Interestingly, the media storm also revealed contradictions and polarization. While some outlets praised the couple's persistence, others framed it as arrogance or entitlement. Some social media users celebrated their courage, while others criticized the timing or motives. These conflicting narratives created tension not just in public perception, but within the couple's own strategy. How do you respond when the world simultaneously cheers and condemns your every move? How do you assert control over your story when the media amplifies every nuance beyond your control? Amid the chaos, advisors reportedly worked on predictive modeling. They analyzed how different approaches, statements, appearances, or social media engagement might influence the storm. They considered potential backlash, potential opportunities, and strategies for mitigating negative coverage. Contingency plans included pre-approved statements, crisis communication protocols, and scenarios for rapid response to emerging narratives. Every aspect of the media storm had to be anticipated, understood, and managed with precision. The emotional toll was significant. Sources indicate that both Harry and Meghan experienced a range of feelings, from frustration and anxiety to determination and strategic focus. The constant scrutiny, amplified by global media, required resilience and discipline. Every reaction was calculated, every statement measured, and every appearance carefully staged to balance authenticity with strategic impact. The storm also created opportunities. The couple could leverage media attention to highlight charitable causes, public initiatives, and personal values. By controlling key narratives, they could transform potential setbacks into moments of triumph. Sources suggest that this approach was central to their planning. Media scrutiny was not merely a challenge. It was a tool to assert influence, shape perception, and reinforce relevance. However, the unpredictable nature of the storm made planning difficult. Leaks, misinterpretations, and viral speculation meant that even the best-laid strategies required adaptation. Real-time monitoring and rapid response became essential, as the narrative could shift within hours or minutes. Advisors reportedly conducted daily briefings, tracking emerging trends and recalibrating strategies to ensure that the couple's story remained coherent, compelling, and strategically advantageous. The storm also affected public sentiment. Supporters were energized, creating a base of vocal advocacy online. Critics, meanwhile, sharpened their commentary, producing op-eds, video analyses, and social media threads critiquing the couple's approach. The polarization intensified the drama, amplifying the stakes and creating an environment where every action had symbolic significance. In this context, Harry and Meghan's planning for the second visit became intertwined with media strategy. They had to consider not only logistics and diplomacy, but also timing, messaging, and public engagement in the face of global attention. Every step required careful calculation. A press release, a social media post, or a public appearance could influence perception, alter media narratives, and affect the outcome of the visit itself. And then came a critical twist. As media speculation intensified, sources suggest that new reports began to emerge, rumors, leaks, and insider accounts that threatened to upend even the most meticulous plans. Stories about private conversations, strategic disagreements, and political hesitations began circulating, creating additional challenges for the couple. The storm had become not just about coverage, but about influence, perception, and control, a dynamic that tested their resilience, foresight, and ability to adapt under extreme pressure. For Harry and Meghan, the media storm was both a challenge and an opportunity. It magnified stakes, intensified scrutiny, and amplified every action. Yet it also offered a platform to assert influence, communicate values, and demonstrate resilience. Every choice mattered, every statement carried weight, and every move had potential consequences. In the high-pressure environment of global media, the couple's ability to navigate, adapt, and shape perception would determine whether rejection became a setback or a triumph. The rejection of Harry and Meghan's second visit didn't just cause a media frenzy. It sent shockwaves through the corridors of political power, both in Australia and beyond. At first glance, it may have appeared to the public as a simple matter of travel logistics or scheduling. But beneath the surface, the decision had far-reaching implications, touching on diplomacy, national image, and the delicate balance between ceremonial monarchy and political autonomy. Inside Australian government offices, debates reportedly ran deep. Ministers, advisors, and security experts convened to weigh the potential consequences of either allowing or denying the visit. On one hand, accepting the couple could boost tourism, showcase Australia on the international stage, and strengthen cultural ties with the United Kingdom. On the other, the optics of a second visit raised questions about priorities, resource allocation, and public perception. Some officials worried about potential backlash from constituents who saw the visit as unnecessary or as a distraction from domestic policy issues. Political analysts pointed to the complex symbolism of the royal visit. While Harry and Meghan are private citizens in many respects, their royal status imbues their public actions with political resonance. Any engagement with Australia would be interpreted not just as a personal visit, but as a statement of influence and connection. For politicians, managing this symbolism required finesse, balancing diplomatic tradition with public accountability and ceremonial respect with national sovereignty. Security concerns were another political factor. A high-profile visit by globally recognized figures requires extensive coordination with law enforcement, emergency services, and local authorities. Reports indicate that planning for security logistics included considerations of crowd control, travel routes, potential protests, and even intelligence on possible threats. Each layer of security carried political and financial implications, creating additional pressure on decision-makers. The political implications extended beyond Australia's borders. Other Commonwealth nations watched the situation closely, interpreting it as a potential precedent for royal visits, international diplomacy, and the boundaries of celebrity influence in politics. A decision to reject or accept Harry and Meghan could ripple outward, affecting relationships with neighboring countries, other Commonwealth members, and the global media. Every choice carried symbolic weight, and every response was scrutinized by political observers worldwide. Domestically, public opinion was a key consideration. Politicians reportedly commissioned surveys and analyzed social media sentiment to gauge how constituents might react. Supporters of the couple saw the rejection as a diplomatic misstep, potentially embarrassing for Australia on the world stage. Critics, however, celebrated restraint, arguing that resources and attention should focus on pressing domestic concerns rather than accommodating high-profile visitors. Balancing these polarized perspectives required careful political calculation. The broader context also mattered. Australia, like any sovereign nation, must navigate complex relationships with global powers, and a royal visit adds another dimension to that calculus. The government needed to consider not only immediate public perception but also long-term diplomatic implications, including trade, cultural collaboration, and symbolic ties with the United Kingdom. Every decision could be interpreted as signaling policy priorities, national values, or political alignment. In addition to political calculations, there were procedural considerations. Government officials needed to ensure that any engagement complied with protocol, legal requirements, and policy frameworks. From approvals for public appearances to coordination with security agencies, every step involved layers of bureaucracy, each with its own implications for timing, perception, and political risk. Sources indicate that these procedural complexities contributed to the initial rejection, highlighting the intersection of politics and operational reality. Inside the royal household, the political dimension was not lost on Harry and Meghan. Advisors reportedly emphasized that any response to the rejection must consider not just public relations, but also diplomatic impact. A misstep could strain relations between Australia and the UK, affect Commonwealth dynamics, or create unintended controversies in other nations. For the couple, navigating political nuance became as important as planning logistics or media messaging. The rejection also raised questions about the modern role of royalty in political spheres. Harry and Meghan's unique position as former senior royals who maintained public influence while operating outside traditional palace constraints blurred the lines between ceremonial presence, celebrity, and political engagement. Their attempted visit tested the boundaries of this dynamic, forcing both governments and the public to confront questions about protocol, authority, and influence. Political commentators noted the timing of the rejection was significant. Occurring amid domestic policy debates, international diplomacy, and ongoing media scrutiny of the royal couple, it amplified both symbolic and practical consequences. Every statement from government officials, every reaction in Parliament, and every media commentary became a lens through which political actors interpreted intent, influence, and authority. Moreover, insiders suggest that opposition parties saw the situation as an opportunity to leverage public sentiment for political gain. Critiques of government decision-making, debate over national priorities, and discussions of protocol were all amplified in political arenas. The royal visit, in effect, became a tool not just of public engagement, but of political strategy, shaping narratives and influencing discourse on multiple levels. Harry and Meghan, aware of these implications, reportedly refined their strategy accordingly. Advisors worked to anticipate political reactions, identify potential allies, and mitigate opposition. Messaging was carefully crafted to emphasize positive contributions, charitable engagement, and cultural significance while avoiding anything that might exacerbate political sensitivities. The couple's approach was calculated, balancing visibility and influence with diplomatic prudence. The stakes were enormous. A misstep could escalate tensions, create media scandals, or even influence political negotiations. Success, on the other hand, could strengthen international relationships, bolster public perception, and reaffirm the couple's capacity to navigate complex global landscapes. For Harry and Meghan, this was no longer a personal issue. It was a test of strategy, influence, and political acumen. And just when it seemed that all variables had been considered, a new political twist emerged. Unconfirmed reports suggested that behind-the-scenes lobbying, public commentary, and unexpected interventions from international figures could dramatically affect the outcome. The landscape shifted, creating uncertainty and forcing the couple and their advisors to adapt once more. Australia's response had become more than a logistical decision. It had evolved into a political crucible. The rejection, media storm, and public scrutiny intersected to create a scenario where strategy, perception, and influence would determine not only the outcome of the second visit, but also the broader narrative surrounding Harry and Meghan's role in the modern monarchy and global public life. Planning a visit by Harry and Meghan is never just about scheduling and optics. It's about navigating a labyrinth of security challenges that few people ever see. The couple's second planned visit to Australia brought these concerns into sharp focus, highlighting the complex interplay between protection, logistics, and public perception. Security was not merely a practical consideration. It was a political, diplomatic, and emotional puzzle that could determine the success or failure of the visit. From the outset, Australian authorities understood the magnitude of the task. Harry and Meghan are globally